loading and the firing of the 3-pound gun. And what that speaks to is the size of the cannonball. It fires a 3-pound iron cannonball. The gun itself, there were 12 of them here at the fort of that size, and then there were 6 smaller swivel guns of the 1-pound range. So there were a total of 18 cannons at this fort, which made it quite unusual for being so far from the next British outpost. The other thing is those cannons had to be brought over the mountain on horseback because there were no wagon trails from here to there. So they had to be strapped to the back of a horse and brought across the mountains. In fact, the commander didn't think the cannons would ever make it here. He left them all on the other side of the mountains when they came here and just brought several of the small guns with him to be more easily transported. Your British artillery crew at the time could fire just as fast as they were firing their muskets, so you're looking at 3 to 4 shots a minute if the only commands being given were load and fire. However, again, we're doing it slower mostly for safety and for procedural reasons, so we're not shooting nearly that fast. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire 1 round off the cannon. We will then demonstrate the wall gun, which is that tall musket right there, and discuss it briefly. We will then finish with a second shot on the cannon. So after the first shot on the cannon, don't run off, there will be more. We're going to discuss what we were doing up here and how we loaded and fired the gun, and a little about the guns themselves. Once we're done shooting, and I dismiss the cannon crew, you're welcome to come up here and take pictures and look around, touch the guns, ask questions, whatever you'd like to do. Does anyone have any questions before we get started? Stunned you into silence. Perfect. Just the way we like it.
Just a question.
Yes.
What's the distance of projectile distance?
We can hit your cars in the parking lot from here.
Hey, Jack.
Also,
Hey, Jack.
this gun is capable of firing about 1,200 feet on a side of path or a path of sight. We don't have any way of projecting the rounds further, so we only shoot as far as we can see. But that 3-pound gun will shoot about 1,200 feet pretty easily. Jack, you can stay down there.
Well, I got a round.
Got a round? All right, stay there.
Okay.
Yes and yes.
No, we're going to do it in 2.
The amateurs?
No. We've got 3 right here.
That's 75 cards. No, then 2 open cards.
It's not the experience of your post.
It's the experience in the repper.
In the gun room.
Mantelpiece. Front battery. Hey, right over under there. Right over the tank. There you go. One more time.
It's not going to go now. You just wedged it under there.
Yes, wedge it. Now it's really in place. Go. Hey.
Just lift it up.
All right. So we're going to do it away because we all like it better.
I see.
Search piece.
That's prime.
Advanced sponge. Sponge piece. That one. Well, she's right here. Monkey, advanced, 3 pounds, solid shot. Yeah.
They got medication for that.
Ram down cartridge. Two battery. Prime. From battery. Give it a nice low tap. We got powder.
Hey, it's there. I don't do that every time. That's not. That's not. It just primes itself. Self-priming cartridge.
Take 8. It's about where you cover your ears. Yep. Ah. Drum battery. We need a couple of wall gun cartridges, Jack.
I got 'em. I got 'em.
Oh, you got them? We're good. All right. So that was the 3-pound gun. Now the gun we're going to demonstrate now is the wall gun or the Rampart piece. It is a 96 caliber smoothbore musket. It's basically a large version of the gun the soldiers are carrying. You could load it with a single shot. It's almost 1 inch in diameter, or you could load it with a lot of smaller shot like a large shotgun. For those of you old enough to remember punt guns, it's very similar to a punt gun that was used to shoot ducks. You could shoot like a whole flock of ducks with one shot. This is a very similar shot, except this was used to shoot at the opposing forces' carriages their artillery was on. The idea is if you knock their carriage, the wheels off their carriage, they can't shoot it. So that's what you were aiming at. However, it can be used against people. During the American Revolution, they used it to disassemble a barn that a bunch of Hessians were hiding in. So it can do that as well. You ready? Firing wall gun! As you can see, it's got a bit of a report to it as well. We know there was at least one of those here at the fort, thanks to the archaeology. They found the butt plate and part of a lock from one of them. They never actually talk about them in any of the writings, but the archaeology tells us there's one, so that worked out good for us because now we get to demonstrate one for you. So, there was probably more than one here because they would have had them on everywhere they had artillery for those purposes, but we don't know for certain. Ready? Firing wall gun! Yeah, it's a pretty neat report, and it does suck the wind right out of you if you're on the other side when it just blows at you. So that gun is shooting about 500 grains of powder. So to give you an equivalency, when we're shooting the muskets, we're shooting about 1/5 that amount of powder. So that thing's shooting 5 times the amount of powder as a single shot from a musket. And obviously it can be loaded. It's meant to be held up on that swivel where it was just mounted to the wall so one person could load and fire it. However, it's also built so that you can use it the same way we're using it with the 2-man formation, which is the way George Washington used theirs at the Battle of Fort Necessity, is they used a 2-man system to fire that gun. They had a rifled version. They claimed they could hit a man-sized target at 600 yards with. And that's a 1-inch ball. So getting hit with a 1-inch ball at 600 yards is not going to be the way to spend your day. All right, so what we're doing when we're firing the gun is we're starting by the man with the thumb stall is taking his thumb stall, and when I'm telling him to tend vent, he's taking that and putting it right over the touch hole on top of the cannon. And that leather's soaked in water, so it seals that hole, so air can't be pulled in that way. We then take the worm or the screw. He's going to run that down the barrel and search the piece. And what he's doing is trying to make sure there's nothing in the barrel from previous shot or anything catching or sticking in the barrel. We then advance the sponge, which is simply a lamb's wool sponge that's been soaked in water, and he touches that to the top of the barrel so I can see how wet it is. He will then run it down the barrel to extinguish anything that might still be burning from a previous shot, because obviously we're about to put a whole lot of gunpowder in there, and we prefer there's not anything burning when we do that. We then have the monkey, who's down here. During battle, or during their period, the monkey actually would have been up here on the platform, and so would the artillery box. But for safety reasons, he's down there with the artillery down there, so he's bringing the shot up to us. He will then pass it off to the man.
Can I ask you to stay
with
right
the
there
screw.
while we shoot the cannon?
He's going to load it into the gun, and the man with the sponge then takes the opposite end of the sponge and rams that cartridge and seats it into the bottom of the cannon. The man with the thumb stall will then take his pick. He's going to drive that through the touch hole, and it busts open that bag of powder. He then pours a musket cartridge on top of it, and that's going to act as our fuse. The person then lighting the cannon takes the link stock, which is simply a piece of burning rope. The rope's been soaked in saltpeter. It's called slow match. So it burns very hot but very slow. And when I call upon it, they will then touch that to that powder on top of the gun. And if everything works right, we get that boom you heard earlier, followed by Frenchmen screaming out in the field somewhere. That's what we would like to have happen. So, does anyone have any questions about that? Nothing. All right then. Well, if it's all right with you, we will take one more shot on the cannon, and then once I dismiss the artillery crew, you can come up here and look around if you'd like. That's a piece. Someone's trying to sneak their line. 10 seconds. Search piece. That sponge. Monkey, 3 pounds, solid shot.
Yeah, they're moving again.
As long as they don't go past our field. All right, ram down cartridge. Toot battery. Right.
We hit the tank.
Right up.
See that?
That other one's like a...
Okay. Give. Fire. From battery. 10 minutes.
Get them on a run.
Piece is secure. Two battery. All right. Artillerists fall into the rear of the gun. For the good of the service, dismissed.
God save the king!
This is about where you clap. Yes, see, very nice.